Okay, folks, I want to welcome everyone to this regular meeting of the Jersey Village City Council. The date is February 12th, 2024. The time is currently 7 o'clock p.m. Madam Secretary, we have a quorum of council present?
Yes.
Great, thank you very much. We have invocation and pledge of allegiance by Jordan Ward, staff pastor at Hope Church.
Thank you. Let's pray and then we'll do the pledge. Lord, we come to you and just thank you so much for tonight, and thank you for everyone here, and just pray that you would just guide this time. I pray that you would just help all of us as we seek to benefit and love the people of Jersey Village and just what's best for our city and our town. And I just pray that you bless this evening and our meeting agenda tonight. Yeah, we pray. Amen. And stay standing for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. Thank you very much, Pastor. Appreciate it. We have no presentations, and so that moves us into citizen comments. The first comment card I have is from Jim Fields.
Jim Fields, 16413 St. Helier. Again, thank you again for allowing me to contribute to tonight's City Council meeting. I'm asking any of the City Council members if you could please move from the consent agenda number 3, if you could move it to the regular one. It would just be very interesting. It would be very interesting to see how we're making progress on that. And the other one is, and I spoke before to it, is TERS 2, and all these meetings are held in secrecy. Daylight is the best, what's the saying? I can't think of it, I apologize. But bring it to light. There's nothing in there that you should have any secrecy on. And I just want to say there's a number one problem in all city governments doing business, and that is the self-interest that they get them in, that they do this to make money off of. I'm not saying that's the case. So I'm saying, Mayor, open up the door and prove us wrong. Last one is codes. Now, Mayor, according to your rules, let's abide by them. I'm going to read what happened about the codes. We're not supposed to discuss that, correct? It's not on the agenda, but I want to read some emails here. Because you're calling it a game, and it's not a game. I love this city. It's a wonderful place to live, and I never take it for granted. But I had it here, and here's what I said, and this was to Councilman Wasson. The vehicles are in plain view and have been sitting here for years. We're not talking about days, weeks, years. And they're within earshot of the Civic Center. And for some reason, all of you, City Council, claim that it's up to me to do your job. You're the mayor, you're the City Council. You can tell the city manager and the code enforcer to go find it. They're in plain view. It's gotten so bad that one person that has an abandoned vehicle now has a 23-foot trailer in it, or 25-foot, whatever. So instead of calling me, you're telling me it's games. There's no games, Mayor. And Councilman Wasson, you asked me in this email saying, well, why don't you tell us? Why don't you tell us? You know why? I've already been through the ringer once. I don't trust this government, not just the mayors here, prior administrations. Maybe it's changed. If you do, they definitely will tell your neighbor who did it. And I'm not going to go there. Plus, you guys were elected to do what we want, and we pay him, and yes, you're a representative. Are you not? Okay, then you're not a representative. But hang on here. I want to read one of these to you. Okay, this is from Councilman Wasson. Nothing is impeding me from locating junk vehicles or any other code violation or other issues. When I find issues or items concerned, I report them to Public Works and or City Manager Blease. I hope other citizens do the same instead of passing the buck. Is that the way to resolve an issue with code enforcement, sir? No. To city workers, that's what they get paid for. Then complain how inefficient and costly things in our government. That is no way. That is your word, sir. And here he goes. Your message, blah, 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 contain the following. There are more vehicles in the city meeting the definition of abandoned vehicles stated below. Several within earshot of the Civic Center. Yes, they are. So why don't you take the time and just drive through the city and find abandoned vehicles? Why is that such an issue? Why are you putting the onus on me when I'm paying, you're elected to ensure these codes are enforced, and have the city manager ask the code enforcer, if she's not going to do her job, then why have the position? Crazy. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you again.
Jim, I'll just say this. I stand by what I said the last time. This is a cynical game that you play where you claim that these issues arise, and yet you will not say a word about where they are. And if you think that our code enforcement officer is not doing anything to find code enforcement issues, I encourage you to look through the meeting packet, through the many, many, many pages of code enforcement issues that are addressed on a regular basis. So it is. Actually, it's in the city manager's report, so I'm going to speak to this issue. Code enforcement is taken very seriously in this city, and it is addressed sometimes to people's concern about whether it's being addressed too aggressively. Now, if you feel as though there are areas where that is not being taken care of, and you are not willing to tell us where these issues exist, then I'm sorry, I'm going to continue to call it for what it is. It's gamesmanship that you continue to bring that does not advance anyone's interests. So I'm not going to play along. If you want to keep playing kids' games, keep doing it, but I'm not going to play along. With that, we're going to move on to the next.
Mr. Mayor, I'll respond
ahead,
with a
Drew.
statement of fact. The reason in my letter, which was very specific to you, Mr. Fields, I recall a number of times that you've come up here and complained about the salaries that we've paid several city officials. And no, please let me respond. And that was my point, is that they can be a lot more effective and a lot more efficient and do the job that we pay them for, and in fact skip a step because citizens are coming forward and say, hey, I think we have a problem here, can you check it out? As opposed to them having to find the problem, no, that is, yes, it is, no, it's not. I think citizens would appreciate faster and more effective government service. That was my contention. I apologize if it offended you, sir, but I'll stand by my words as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate your time. No, sir, your time is up. Jim, sorry. Jim, your time is up. Please go sit down. Mr. Nathan Kelly is next up. Thank you.
Mayor, thank you for the opportunity. Council, I appreciate you giving me a few minutes this evening. I'm going to speak on item G3 and specifically about the Castle Bridge Seniors Project related to G3. My name is Nathan Kelly. I'm with Blazer Building, Blazer Real Estate Services, a whole host of companies, and my colleague Matt Fuqua is going to spend some time talking about project specifics. But I just wanted to tell you a little bit about Blazer, tell you a little bit about the process that we're currently going through, and to say thank you to your city manager, Alston, and fire chief and police chief for spending some time with us, letting us explain this process and dive into some of the preliminary details of the project, really just so that we could be here today to bring this opportunity before you. Like I said, we're with Blazer Building. Blazer's been in existence in Houston since 1978. If you drive south on Beltway, on the west side of it, you've probably seen a small building that says Blazer across the top. We're right down the street from you all. We are a general construction company focused on multifamily development. That's all we focus on. We build property, we own property, and we self-manage our own properties. As it sits today, we've got about 3,600 units around the Houston MSA. That's about 25 properties. So, in terms of the scheme of multifamily operators, our average unit count is relatively small, or average units per project is relatively small. Within that pool, we've got 10 senior communities, and that's what we'll be talking about with respect to Castle Bridge. We submitted a pre-application to a state agency. It's the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs, related to a program that the U.S. Treasury and Internal Revenue Service work through every year. It's a federal income housing tax credit, and essentially what that credit is a corporation's opportunity to invest in local communities by way of buying this credit. We use the proceeds of that to turn around and pair with some debt to build housing for folks across an income spectrum, but specifically in this case also across or targeted specifically to seniors, folks that HUD would characterize as age 62 plus. Part of this process, because it is very stipulated in Texas state statute, is that we have to come before you, tell you what we're doing. We provided notices to each of you at the beginning of May as part of that pre-application process, and we have to ask you for your support of our project. That support comes in the form of a resolution that you all have before you. Ideally, that would be specific to our project rather than a resolution concerning the two projects that are in your area. But I'll assure you that the rules that the state promulgates would only allow one of those projects to move forward rather than two of them potentially moving forward. And I'll tell you also that your vote in support of the resolution for our project doesn't necessarily mean our project is moving forward. We're competing against currently 30 plus pre-applications in the Houston area. That will most likely get whittled down to 15 applications that get submitted to the state on March 1st. And from there, it's kind of a stack ranking of scores and a competitive process to see which moves forward. It's a scoring component, your support is. It makes up 17 points of the aggregate score, and so it is extremely meaningful. And then we take whatever decision that you all make and sit down and have a meeting. And I've already been in contact with State Representative Lacey Hull, who has supported us in the past on other deals, and let her know that we were having this meeting tonight and hoping that you would support us and allow us to continue to move forward. I'll also say that a vote for this resolution only allows our application to continue moving forward. We still have to go through all of the other hurdles specific to obtaining the specific use permit we would need and providing all of the related design requirements that you all would expect to go through the normal course of action through planning and back before you for that permit, and then provide that to the state as part of a follow-up documentation process, generally no later than September of this year, of that application cycle. And so, again, this is step two, right, of a multi-step process. It doesn't mean that the project is going to move forward. What it does mean, though, a vote not to approve the resolution is that the project would not move forward. And so we ask for your support and appreciate you giving me some time tonight to speak on it.
I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
All right. Next speaker I have is Matt Fuquay.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, staff. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you here for the Castle Bridge Seniors Development, and wanted to just kind of share with you some information that inside the packet that was provided regarding the site details of this development. Would make up 130 units of elevator served building. We're planning a 3-story building, fully perimeter fenced and gated access property. Wanted to share that within our property we have on our 10 other senior properties that we have and that we own and operate. Those properties would be similar to the property those properties with the explanation that we have amenities within the community center that are geared towards our active adult community. We have an on-site transportation bus that's a 12-passenger bus that takes residents for trips, doctor visits, etc. We have, let's see, the 130 units would be a mix of 1 and 2 bedrooms, and so that's another point to make. Part of our 10 other senior properties, average size of those properties are approximately 150 units. Smallest community being 77 units, the largest being 264 units. And what we've seen on those properties, the call volume typically depends on the size of the community when it comes to the EMS, and the larger properties have typically larger call volumes, and most of those calls tend to be wellness checks. And as Nathan mentioned, we do have our self management company, so we do enjoy the opportunity to work together, and appreciate your time to present tonight, and hope we'll have the opportunity to work with you as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Matt. Next card I have is from James McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. Thank you, City. My name is James McDonald. I'm from 16306 Acapulco. Stop laughing at me, Ms. McCrae. I am here on behalf of Scouts. I am the local PAC 1177's Cub Master, and I'm also Assistant Scoutmaster to Troop 1177. And I'm here representing actually the Sam Houston Area Council today to present the City of Jersey Village as Business Partner of the Year. Thank you guys for everything you've done to support Scouts and support the local units. I know each individually person of you all have helped in some way recently. The city has been gone above and beyond with offering facilities and assistance here and there. Chief Bitts has gone more than out of his way to help us with our Pinewood Derby coming up. So on behalf of the Sam Houston Area Council, thank you to the City of Jersey Village. So I would give it to Austin, but Austin's bosses are the City Council, and the City Council's bosses is me and the citizens, so I'm going to keep this award. Thank you.
I knew James could not come up here and speak without laying out the jokes, so I appreciate it, and also for a good cause, because as an Eagle Scout myself who grew up in the area, I know all of the amazing work that the Sam Houston Area Council does, and it's a still to this day a phenomenal program. So James, thank you for all you do. The fact that you were both a Cub Master and an Assistant Scout Master, that sounds like a glutton for punishment sort of situation. Yeah, so good luck to you, sir, because that's a lot to do. But thank you. Okay, the next card I have is from Dennis Peterson.
Good evening. You know, Mayor, I'm going to start getting here earlier. These are really hard acts to follow, you know. So I hope I'm the last one. But anyway, I'd like to talk to you about the agenda item G1 that's on the agenda for this evening for capping the sewer rates. I did a little bit of study on it from the information that was provided in the packet. And first, I'm sure I just missed something, but I was having trouble reconciling the number of actual meters that we have with the counts that were on the sheets. You know, if you add up the columns, there's plus or minus 2,100 connections that are listed for each month. Varies a little bit month by month, but we've got 3,787 connections. So I know there's 850 that are individual sprinklers, but somewhere there seems to be missing 800 to 900 connections that would have fit into the data. So I don't know if it would affect your analysis any, Mr. Blease, but anyway, that's just an observation. Second, you know, the proposed ordinance also is capping the water rates at 6,000 gallons, but I didn't see any discussion about what that did financially or even why it was being considered. That was in the markup of the ordinance itself, so I was just a little confused by that. But as our city manager aptly appointed in the conversation or the assumptions part is that this is all kind of irrelevant because there's a set amount of money that we need to cover our expenses. So if you lower your sewer rate, you're going to have to raise water rates and vice versa. I mean, so it's kind of a conundrum that keeps going back and forth. But I would like the council to consider one other approach, and I recommend that the council attack the problem and not the symptoms. I think we're dealing here with some of the symptoms of trying to come up with the cash flows and the revenues that were part of the water rate study. I personally believe that the water rate study was overly, is the word pessimistic or optimistic? In other words, I think there are some assumptions in the report which I haven't been able to view in detail, but I think there are some very big assumptions in there about water costs, about inflation, that are raising the needs for the capital. I also think that how we entered some of the projects into a maintenance expense rather than a capital cost has extremely elevated the water rate costs. So what I think the problem is, in my opinion, is that the water rate study is asking us to raise too much money for the system. And as Mr. Bleeks mentioned in this commentary on G1, you're going to you're going to delay some of the bonding that you had planned to spend this year. So, the cash flow changes. Our bond payments won't start until 2026 instead of 2025. So I would ask that the council consider going back and relooking at the water rate study to see if it's still reasonable, the assumptions that were included in there. So, I did a little research on how we sit within the state, and according to what the Municipal League, the Texas Municipal League numbers are, there's 95% of the cities in Texas that are within our size category of 5 to 10,000 have water and sewer costs that are less than ours. 95%. I can't believe we're not a little bit more efficient than that in how we approach it. And this is before the already legislated 46% increase occurs between now and 2028. So again, my point being, I believe this all drives back to the water study, the water rate study, which has costs in there that may be reconsidered. So that's my request. Questions?
Great. Thank you very much, Dennis. I definitely appreciate it. I know we're going to be discussing a lot of those issues during that item on the agenda. I don't know if anyone has any particular issues they want to address immediately, but
the 850 is very possibly the difference of 850 may be commercial. There's also a lot of city municipal water meters.
Yeah, those numbers are much less. I think there's 169 commercial, and there's 850 independent irrigation connections. But even if you do that, there's still 800 or 900 missing connections. So.
We'll take a look at that. The last comment card I have is from Kimberly Anow.
My name is Kimberly Anow, and I live at 15601 Singapore Lane. As my 29th installment, Jersey Village in 1998 mirrored pop culture's best-selling fiction novel, The Long Road Home by Danielle Steele, which felt too real as you sat in 290's traffic. Top TV show ER as our EMS requested a pen-based computer for the ambulance. And the Wallflowers won 2 Grammy Awards for Best Rock Song and Rock Group Performance for One Headlight, which could get a vehicle and golf cart pulled over by JVPD for transportation and city code violations. City Council authorized the mayor to request that Harris County officially abandon the right-of-way of West Gulf Bank Road from Senate Avenue westward to the 290 feeder road. During a March work session, a bid was accepted to construct a 12-inch water line along 290, Security Way, West Gulf Bank, and Solomon. Also, a proposed sales tax for crime control and prevention was discussed for any increase in police presence for the 75-acre development in the annexed southeast area of the village. The fire department hosted a firefighter visiting from France. it may be possible that this question was asked. Pourquoi la Texas est-il si chaude comme un feu? Which roughly translates to, why is Texas so hot like a fire? Council unanimously accepted a $75,000 grant from the U.S. Department of Justice's Community-Oriented Policing Services, COPS program, to hire another police officer. The Recreation and Events Committee hosted an August Madness ice cream social at Carol Fox Park. Mayor Schneider advised Mrs. Melba Kester called to make sure that the various plaques honoring citizens had been rehung after the City Hall remodeling. The mayor also had concerns that the city needed to address any time-dated mechanical equipment for the year 2000 conversion. An ordinance was discussed where if a residence had multiple water meters, such as having a sprinkler system, that they would be metered separately but billed together on one invoice statement. Due to the Senate Avenue reconstruction, parking and sidewalks were discussed for Carol Fox Park, such as front-end parking on Jersey and Acapulco, and installing a wrought iron fence so children could play safely. November City Council comments were especially appreciative of city staff for painting light poles, planting pansies along Senate, and how the city mechanics dedicated efforts to repair not just the first line fire truck, but also another fire truck that broke down in the same week. Ordinances passed unanimously for 98-17 for no parking zones such as on Elwood, and no parking tollway zones on certain streets such as in the school zones, and for 98-26 for the local sales and use tax rate of 0.5% to finance the Jersey Village Crime Control and Prevention District. City Manager Dale Brown updated that work had begun on the traffic signal light at Village Green and Jones Road. Fire Chief Kathy Hutchins advised Jersey Village High School wanted to have a bonfire for homecoming, which did occur successfully, and the Falcons were victorious, winning 35-6. In December, Del Brown advised that FEMA funding was approved for the reimbursement of emergency operations costs due to Tropical Storm Francis, which occurred on September 11th. Due to this emergency weather event, the city allowed 180 days of waiving permit fees for flood damage repairs and use of recreational vehicles with appropriate electrical and sewer connections for flood victims only, and permits were still required. Councilmember Berube congratulated the fire, police, and public works departments for their excellent job and the residents for coming together, helping each other. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Kimberly. Okay, those are all of the citizen comments I have. That brings us to the city manager's report. Austin, please.
Mayor and councilors, the report's before you. Happy to answer any questions that you might have, but I also would like to welcome Chief Keel to his first council meeting as chief.
Congratulations again, Chief Keel, on your promotion. Any questions from council for the city manager on his report?
Austin, I've heard a lot of great things, but can you give us a status on the golf course clubhouse?
Coming soon. Early April. We're targeting an early April opening for that, for the new building. The second one will be hopefully later this summer. But there's temporary restrooms out there right now, so they can get started on the existing building more quickly. And we should be early April for the new one.
Very good news. Any other questions from council for the city manager? Okay, we'll go ahead and move on then. That brings us to the consent agenda. Does any member of council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda for consideration during the regular agenda?
I'd like to remove F3, please.
Okay, F3 will be considered at the top of the regular agenda. Does any other council member wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Okay, seeing no other removals, I would entertain a motion on the modified consent agenda.
I'll motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of removal of F3.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all of those in favor? All of those against? Any abstentions? The modified consent agenda passes unanimously. So we are now going to consider item number F3, receive and discuss if necessary a progress report from the owners of the property located at 15830 Northwest Freeway, Jersey Village, Texas, concerning the progress on the performance of the work required under Ordinance 2024-01, which found the structures on the property to be substandard and a public nuisance, ordered Speedy Stop Food Stores Limited or the true owners of the property to abate the substandard and dangerous structures on the property, authorizing the city to demolish the structure on the property if the owner fails to abate the substandard and dangerous structure on the property, authorizing the city to assess a lien against the property for the cost of demolition, and making other findings and provisions related thereto. I think Aisha Johnson is not in attendance. I don't know if Austin, if you want to cover it, or anyone else. Oh, Lori will handle this.
Okay, so on January 22, the City Council conducted a public hearing pursuant to Section 34-253 of the Code so that the owner or the owner's representatives for the property located at 15830 would be able to come and show cause why the building or the structure should not be declared substandard and why the owner should not be ordered to repair, vacate, or demolition the buildings. After the hearing, City Council passed Ordinance 2024-01, finding the structures at 15830 Northwest Freeway to be substandard. In its basic form, the ordinance provided that the owner of the property shall, within 10 days of the date of the ordinance 2024-1, fence the property. Within 30 days of the ordinance, secure the building and demolish the interior, and within 45 days of the date, submit a request for permits. The ordinance also required the owner of the property to file a progress report with the city secretary no later than February 6th, and that should be included in this meeting packet. Additionally, the City Council is expecting that the owner will appear before them on March 18 to review the owner's second status report, with this being filed no later than March 8. And in the meeting packet, you did receive the report as filed by the owner for the first part of that ordinance.
Great. Thank you, Lori. Discussion amongst council on this item.
I just really wanted to point out that they are following the what I will refer to as strict guidelines we gave them. And they did send an update. They've done all the stuff they're supposed to so far, and I guess we're just waiting to see for the next update.
Yeah, I mean, they sent a one-page email detailing that they want to pull permits by the end of this month. So I think that's within the schedule. I guess January 21 was the 30-day, and then 45 days off. And they're working with an architect to see if they can renovate. So
we're just doing what we're supposed to be doing now, just waiting, letting them follow instructions.
Let's hope they keep it up.
The next two deadlines will be the more important ones to get feedback from. But
okay, I assume that does council need to take action regarding receipt of this?
No, we're good to move on.
Okay, good. Unless any of the members of council had any other discussion on this, we'll move on to the rest of the regular agenda. Okay, good deal. That brings us to item G1. Consider ordinance number 2024-08, amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Jersey Village, Texas, Chapter 70, Utilities, Section 77, to provide for amendments to water and wastewater rate schedules, providing a severability clause, providing for repeal, providing a penalty as provided by Section 1-8 of the Code, and providing an effective date. Austin Blease, City Manager.
Mayor, councilors, last month council discussed a desire to have a cap on the wastewater rates. The ordinance presented here tonight would cap those rates. I just want to point out that it is for wastewater, not water. It seemed like there might have been some confusion. But the council needs to decide what level they want to cap the rates at and adjust the proposed ordinance accordingly. If the council wanted to do the maximum usage of 12,000 gallons for sewer rates, that would be approximately $600,000 impact to the utility fund. If it was a 10,000 gallon maximum, it would be approximately $730,000 impact to the fund. Any cap of the wastewater rate means a corresponding increase to the water rates would be likely. At this point, there's no change for those being presented. We have come under budget for our lift station bid projects. We'll also not be issuing all the debt service right now that was anticipated. So these two items do help to make up a little bit of that revenue shortfall. And once we have 6 months worth of data, which we will in March 2024, we'll look at the rates again and project out for the next 5 years as we did with the current rate study. So all that information will be ready for council as we move into the budgeting process for next fiscal year. Council did ask to see the breakdown of how many bills are lower than 10,000 and 12,000 gallons. You'll see in the winter months, the majority are below that number. As you get into July, 55% are under 10,000, 62% were under 12,000 in 2022. 2023, that was 76% under 10,000 and 82% under 12,000. You can see the ebbs and flows with the rainfall amounts in here as well. Rainfall decreases, watering increases. But all that data is there for the council, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Discussion amongst council on this item.
I actually just wanted to clarify. So you're saying in March of this year, when it says you're looking at rates again to project out the next 5 years, is that would you refer to that as a new water rate study?
Updated? Yeah, new, updated.
So when you're saying updated, or is it just based off of, are we still using the same previous projections, or are we using new calculated projections?
No, we would use like all the new data that we have for this new rates that we have. What is that doing for the financial impact? Look at the expenses for the next 5 years. We have the CIP stuff that we know is coming from the engineering firm that we need to be doing. Also, the debt service numbers are finalized and those types of things. So it would be, you could say it's a whole new study. It's going to be looking at everything.
Austin, just remind me, just kind of looking at past rate studies, when we've looked at projected expenses for major projects, how close do estimates from those studies typically get to what we see in terms of actual costs for the projects?
It's always a crapshoot, really. Sometimes you get fairly close. I mean, when we plugged in the lift station numbers, we had the engineer estimate that was $2.1 million, and the low bid came in, 1.3. So even using the best information that we can, when you go out to bid for some of those things, it changes drastically. For some of the inflationary factors that we've seen for water rates from Houston and those types of things, you can kind of project those ones out a lot more closely. When we have some of the costs that we know, that helps, and you can project those costs better. But a lot of the projects, as we've talked about several times before, they're up 3 times as much as they were back in 2020. So the construction costs, the pipes, the labor, and all of that has really skyrocketed, and those prices have stabilized, which means they're flat-ish, but they're not going back down to where they were, and we don't expect them to go back down either.
So we are, just to make sure people understand, even though we're looking at a cap of the sewer rates now, we are still looking at the overall rate structure to see what other adjustments can be made, correct?
We'll look at that in whole in March as part of this study, and then we'll talk about that with council as part of the budgeting process. And if council wants to see something for action before the budget stuff is finalized, we can. But that'll be the next kind of look at it all.
Just to kind of to a point that Mr. Peterson raised, which I think is a very good point, which is, what if we've grossly overestimated the cost of these projects that are coming due in the next couple of years? There's a couple of things that help us along the way there. Number one is that this fund is, by definition, a fund that is dedicated solely to maintaining our utilities. So if more money comes in than we need, we can make adjustments to rates to level that out. The other good thing is we do look at these things at least once every 5 years. So it's not like there's a massive amount of money just sitting in this fund that's going to waste. It is something that is being regularly revised and looked at. That said, I will say if we are going to err on one side versus the other, I would hate to be a council member sitting up here as that fund falls short of money for something as critical as water and sewer. I would rather that we estimate that they may come in a little bit higher and have that cushion so that people honestly don't have a situation like what we have now where costs suddenly shoot up, which I don't think anyone could have reasonably estimated would have happened. But you see what happens now when that happens, where we realize there's going to be a shortfall in the fund and we need to increase rates. People are very upset. When rates just sort of stay flat, no one really blinks an eye. And so I think budgeting to create a cushion rather than assuming the best case scenario is always going to be the better policy, both financially and in terms of people's reactions. I don't know if anyone else has anything. Obviously, this is going slightly beyond the question of a sewer cap, but it is part of the overall economics here.
Well, and I'd just like to say on my previous time on council, there were decisions made to postpone some of the capital improvements that should have been made that we're now dealing with. And so I think we're doing a much better job of staying on top of things like we should have been in the past, so that we don't find ourselves in that same situation in the next 5 years. So we're kind of dealing with some sins of the past here, unfortunately, and I think we're righting the ship.
I'll also say to expected expenses, I think one of the items that we considered for the bond was the full rehabilitation of certain infrastructure, underground infrastructure, and we determined that a line of demarcation was 1980, I think, and so half the pipes effectively in the city were before that, and they were the ones that we'd spend the bond money for, and then we'd be able to do pay-go to repair the other ones in the next few years, right? You can't pay unless you have money as well. So I think part of this wastewater funds goes towards that infrastructure. I think the question before us, if I can focus this, is what's the definition of fair, right? And we've already agreed that we didn't think averaging might have been the best way to go. And so looking at the caps is the way. And as much as I'd like to think that 10,000 is, the data shows that 12,000 better captures pretty much everybody's usage. And anything above that for 95% of the households is probably not used for wastewater, towards wastewater. So I'd lean that way if we're about to discuss that. If we have other comments regarding utility funds, though, go ahead.
Any other thoughts on the setting the level here?
I'll just say I think anything we're doing now, honestly, is kind of just a stopgap until we get to looking at data, because I think we're just trying to do something to alleviate some concerns. But I don't personally necessarily feel like this is going to be the correct long-term solution.
I think, though, it's the right timing because we're about to start watering lawns, because I don't think we're going to rain every weekend until the end of the year. Although that's been precedent, so who knows?
So to be clear, we are the question that I think staff needs from us is 10,000 versus 12,000?
Or whatever number you want to put in there.
I think at least those are the two that seem to be predominantly presented.
I think that 12,000 is probably reasonable until we get some data.
I agree, and I understand that you're talking about the impact to the utility fund, but I could be totally wrong on this, but I think that the impact number you're getting is coming from a full year. Is that correct? And so my assumption is that we would be, it sounds like we're going to reevaluate this when we have these numbers, so we hopefully would not be looking at a shortfall of, $750,000.
I agree.
So just to recap, make sure everyone's on the same page, or anyone watching from home online. The reason why we're discussing this cap now with an aim towards looking at rates later on is because we are going to start in the next month or two, going to start getting into the warmer part of the year where people are going to start watering their lawns. And if they're watering their lawns from their main meter, they're going to get a big shock when their water bill comes in compared to prior years, unless we put in this cap in the meantime. Our plan, however, is to eventually look at completely revised rates, which, as Mr. Peterson pointed out, if we're looking at lowering or changing our sewer rates, it is probably going to mean higher water rates. We have to figure out what that number is in order to make sure that our utility fund remains solvent. So that will be coming down the pipe, but we understand that there are going to be people who may otherwise get a sticker shock if we don't do something now in the meantime. So it sounds like, at least unless any council member wants to look at something different, it looks like we're looking at setting the cap at 12,000 gallons per month, at least for the charges on sewer.
Yeah, I don't think this is a stopgap at best, and I think that's the only reason I'm voting for it is that we're about to start irrigation, and I can go with 12,000. So I move we approve ordinance 2024-8 at 12,000 gallons.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from council? Seeing none, all of those in favor? Those against? Any abstentions? The ordinance passes unanimously. That brings us to item G2, discuss and take appropriate action concerning annual sign permits and permit fees, and consider ordinance number 2024-09, amending the Jersey Village Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Article 4, Division 2, Section 2-142, to amend the schedule of fees related to sign permit fees and providing for repeal. Austin Blees, City Manager.
This issue is being brought up. At least one person has reached out to the city council members about the late fees that are charged for sign permits and stating that they never received the bill. The issue surrounds our annual operating permits for signs. These are permits that are required to be renewed every year by December 31st. If a permit's not renewed by the 31st, it's subject to a late fee. Our current ordinance reads, quote, failure to renew a sign operating permit by the established deadline shall result in an additional fee equal to the fee of the annual operating permit or $105, whichever is greater. The standard practice for the permitting department has been to send out the bills in October of each year, as the permit needs to be renewed by the 31st. That practice occurred once again in 2023. Letters were sent out to all 151 people that have a sign permit in the spring and again in the summer to inform them of the new process that was coming out for them to renew their permits online via our permitting portal. The bills were mailed out in October, as has been the practice historically. In investigating the issue, the permit clerks informed me that this year there were 91 businesses that received a late notice for not paying their bill on time. She also stated that's on par with previous years. Upon learning that, we are implementing a better process to try and encourage people to pay timely. The ordinance drafted here tonight would change the late fee from the greater of the double of the fee or $105 to the lesser of them. However, staff does have concerns that if there's no incentive to pay timely, that people will continue to not pay timely and will spend more staff time trying to chase down those fees. This year there have been 5 businesses that have said they did not get their bill in the mail. There have been news articles lately about the United States Postal Service and the slow delivery in the Houston area. However, there's been no indication that any of our mail has been impacted, but that is the theme that we've heard this year. So if the council would like to modify the annual operating permit late fees, they can do so tonight. That ordinance is before you.
Okay, discussion amongst council on this.
I read it, got a little bit confused, but then I read the ordinance. We're not changing the late fee, but you're changing from whichever is greater to whichever is lesser.
That's how it is here, because I know at least the few of the people that have reached out have said that their original permit fee was $15 or so, and then their late fee was $105, and so that's what's prompted that from the council perspective.
It's a late fee. It's meant to be a penalty. It is lucky that they're their sign fee is not very expensive, but
So one of the reasons I brought this up is I was contacted by a resident who said, his concern on this is the fact that he did not receive his bill this year. And so for me, it's the fact that the city does not seem to send these with, with tracking. Certified, thank you. The city doesn't send these certified. So when it comes down to it, you have a situation where the city it's a he said, she said. The city's saying they sent it. They're saying they didn't receive it. And while I understand that you don't get your normal bills by mail certified, I understand that. This is different. These are permit fees. And this is maybe my personal opinion on this. So if we don't want to change this to where it's lesser, or if we want to change it to where it's lesser, that's fine. But I think what we're missing out on is if we're not going to send this stuff certified, then we need to give citizens an option to either appeal, or we need to give somebody in City Hall the ability to say, okay, I get it. There's something here. Your sign fee was $11 and now your bill is $125. That's excessive. And for me, that's the issue. So I feel like it's from a customer service standpoint, we need to do a better job with our citizens and giving them an opportunity here.
Yeah, I would agree with you that 7X is a rather punitive penalty. That said, and we may not be able to solve this tonight, do we also send those bills like PDF via email if the citizen chooses as well?
They now have that ability. They didn't before, but they do now.
So I think, and that to me is also part of the issue, is this specific person that had this issue that contacted me is saying, he's like, well, going forward, I would have gotten a PDF version of this, or I would have gotten an email version. I would have gotten some kind of notification, but this is all snail mail with no tracking.
Yeah,
and then he has the only form of appeal he has is to go to I believe it's the Board of Appeals, which last I checked is a $500 fee just to file. So he's caught in this situation where there is no recourse whatsoever. And I understand Austin does not want to have the ability to waive a late fee for a person, and I understand his reasonings for that. But I feel like in this situation, we need to give people an option, or we need to give them an opportunity to state their case in a fair way.
Out of curiosity, Austin, so obviously the standard for any time we set fees for permits of any kind is that it's supposed to be by state law designed to solely compensate for staff time. Is $15 for, I guess this is my concern, and maybe this might be sort of poking the bear that had been slumbering for a while. Is $15 for a sign permit really covering staff time that's needed to process that permit?
For the annual operating permit, which this is, you've got the visual inspections, which you can obviously inspect quite a few signs in a short amount of time, and then the now digital processing. It's close-ish.
So then the question then becomes, okay, add on top of that the effort, the staff time that's required to then follow up if someone does not pay their permit. Is that more time intensive?
That would be more time intensive, especially if you're having to mail out additional letters and that type of thing.
But wouldn't it be then if, sending something certified? Now, I spoke to Justin, and he made the comment that we could up the permit fee if we chose to send them certified. Now, going forward, if we're also having a digital version, I don't necessarily feel like that's necessary. But we could up our permit fee to include the $4 or whatever it costs to send it certified. You do it by a meter. It's a push of a button. It's not return receipt. There's a difference between certified and then, certified receipt.
I get that. I totally understand that. I've dealt with certified mail a lot.
Well, and anything legal, especially legal involving fees, is always sent certified or FedEx or
I'm going to tell you this. I get no bills sent by certified mail, and I'm still responsible for paying them. The IRS is not going to say, oh, you know what, we didn't send you, we forgot to tell you that you need to file your taxes by April 15th. We all know that. The permit fees don't really change. So I see a notice as being really more of a courtesy than anything, because they, if somebody has a pet, I assume the city does not send out a notice letting people know that they need to repay their pet permits or any of the other annualized permits. I think
they don't, but there's also not a late fee associated with those. So why is this the difference?
Is that true?
I've never paid one.
Maybe that's an oversight.
Oh. So
I pay mine, but if you don't pay it at the same time every year, there's no late fee associated with not registering your pet.
No.
And I think we're kind of getting away from the issue. I think you have a person here who had an $11 bill who is now being sent a $130 or $125 late fee attached to that, who claims they did not receive their bill and has absolutely no recourse. And I think I don't think this is okay to do that to people.
I get that, but you're only changing it so that their bill is now $105 off their $15 permit. So, is that really a solution if that's the issue?
No. It could be double. It says whichever is less.
Yeah, I thought wasn't double.
A fee equal to
the
fee.
See, double. Okay, double.
So that would be $22 versus $129.
I see. Sorry about that. That's my mistake.
Yeah. I think what Austin was saying, the purpose of the late fee is to compensate for staff time and the extra stuff. I feel like the path of least resistance here is just to modify the late fee to match the work that would be needed for the city staff.
Yeah, because this is a $30 is a 15. What would it be? If it's a $15 permit, then this would propose to make the late fee $30.
You'd pay double the permit fee. So yeah, and the sign permit fees are based upon the size of the sign. So not every sign is $15. The bigger ones are more expensive.
I think I'm hearing a lot of different things here. I think the solution may not match the problem. As far as certified, I don't think I know anybody in all the government I've worked in that sends a certified notice that, hey, you're late.
I'm not saying send it if it's late. I was saying the original thing could be certified. However, I also, if you'll recall, I previously said now that it's being sent digitally, I don't necessarily feel that that's necessary. But what we're talking about is before that practice was in place.
Okay. So I'm not in favor of doing anything certified to start out with. But what I'm hearing is there's more of a problem where it's not the amount of the fee, it's not that there is a fee, it's not the staff time, it's that this person has no way to appeal the decision other than a $500 filing fee.
Correct.
And this is maybe not the right solution for that. Maybe is there a system out there that's already in place? Is there a way to set up an appeals process? Because I don't think 105 is that far off from staff time on a late applicant. There is work involved. But is there a process that could be put in place for a permit fee or an issue? Could we change the Board of Adjustment filing fee if your issue is of a less dollar value? Some way of fixing that?
So just from my standpoint, to call a board meeting to address $105 would not be wise.
And that's why originally I had asked, when I brought this up originally to Austin and spoke to Justin, I made the comment to him, I liked the idea of there being, like, giving Austin and maybe two other people a combined authority to sign off on waiving a late fee if they felt something was excessive. And he did not like that idea, so this is the next suggestion.
So that's good information to know, is that we looked at a way to do an appeal. There wasn't really a good way to do it, so that's how we ended up with the lesser.
Well, yeah, and I don't know that it's a good way to do it. I think he felt that it left him vulnerable to the idea of people feeling like things weren't fair.
Yeah,
and I do understand that. I do, but I also feel like we're letting we're letting a lot of things get in the way of, to me, is what is common sense. Like,
So-
this is common sense here.
What if we just remove the second verbiage of it? So the fee would just be double your original fee. So if it's a big sign and you're late, then double that. If it's your $11 sign, it's $22. I mean, that just seems more realistic for a solution for everybody's all angles.
The big signs, it wouldn't work because then you're doubling their big fee, which is nowhere near the amount of staff work. Like, staff work for a late one would not come even close to what we'd be charging them.
But that's what we're doing
But
now.
we're already doing it.
Well, no, it's the lesser of.
No, that's what we're going to change it to.
Yeah.
It's greater of right now. So
Pay
we're
a
already charging more.
$1,000 sign fee and you're late, you have a $1,000 penalty.
That's what I'm saying. Oh, sorry, that was really loud. That's what I'm saying. So you're responsible for double of whatever your application for. So if you have a big old sign, it should be very important to your heart and soul and remember. And if it's a little one-off tiny sign, that's probably just as cute. Then
I recognize the irony of the fact that we've spent this much time talking about how much time is spent on something. It's very meta. My one concern is I don't think that the amount of staff time spent on chasing late payments is affected by whether that payment is $15 or $1,500. I think it's probably about the same to chase a number and to get a bill paid. To me, it almost seems like it makes more sense to just make it a flat fee.
But we've already been doing it this way.
I understand.
So, I mean, would it not be, if we're already doing it this way and we've been doing it that way, why not just change out whichever is greater and it's just double your fee?
What I'm saying is just make it make it a flat rate for late.
You have a really good, valid point that we're talking too much about it. And now that I've learned a lot of the work that you already did, I'm good to just vote for this.
I'm good to vote for this with the lesser of. One thing I would suggest, and I think the city staff does a really good job of this, is reassess those the cost of issuing permits for signs. Whether that's
agree, yeah.
We can do that as part of our annual process of everything this year. But I just want to I want to note, like, in the one case, it's a resident that owns a business and has a small sign. Another person that called was an attorney for a big company that has several signs in town, and both of them wanted waivers. And I can't, having a discretionary thing there just doesn't sit well with me.
I agree. And again, this people who have these signs that have been paying this permit should not be surprised that the permits due. They have calendars. They can use them. We all do. And so I don't think that that's unreasonable to ask of somebody who has a sign in our city. But yes, I would highly encourage staff to, when they have an opportunity, and this is true across the board, it's always good to reevaluate our permit structure to ensure that it is staying closely hewn to the time the staff actually spends. Whether that may be that they look at a fee and say this fee is way too high because we've streamlined things, which may be the case in a lot of instances, but I suspect for a $15 sign, that probably is a little too low. So, yeah, I think that's a good exercise to undertake.
I agree with that, and then possibly readjusting permits. So I will motion to approve ordinance number 2024-09 with adjusting the fees and charges imposed language to lesser instead of greater.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All of those against? Any abstentions? The ordinance passes unanimously. That brings us to item G3, consider resolution 2024-13 regarding applications for Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs 2024 competitive 9% housing tax credits. Austin Blease, City Manager.
Mayor and councilors, the city has received notice from the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs that 2 entities have submitted affordable housing applications for possible funding through the competitive housing tax credit program to develop affordable multifamily rental housing in the city of Jersey Village. That full notice is in the packet as Exhibit A. One of the proposed developments is the residences at Jersey Village, which is proposed to be located on the northeast corner of Seville Lane behind the manor. The The owner information on that is the same owner as the manor. They're proposing 98 units, all of which would be low-income units with a target population of the elderly. The council will recall that the owner submitted a specific use permit application for a very similar project back in late 2021, and it came before council in February 2022. That project was not granted this specific use permit. There were many concerns about the increased call volumes this would place on our emergency services and other concerns as well. The owner has not reached out to the city at all on this project except for the required notifications to inform us that they were of their application. The other proposed development, Castlebridge Seniors, is on the east side of Seville Lane at 12450 Castlebridge Drive. The owner of that project is Blazer Building. They spoke to the council earlier this evening. They're proposing 130 units, with 100 being low-income units and a target population of the elderly. Staff did sit down with them. They have similar facilities around the Houston area. Staff reached out to the EMS departments that serve those facilities, and they have seen similar call numbers to the facilities there that we have experienced with our existing senior facilities. Blazer submitted more information. All that information is in the packet. They also talked about it this evening. Exhibit C in the packet is a guide from the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs on the low-income housing tax credits and how that works. Staff does have concerns with bringing additional over 55 multifamily housing units into the city and the added call volume that will create on our emergency services. Given the proposed location of these developments and the need for the specific use permit at these locations, giving a vote of support to that project at this stage could be seen as providing support for the project as a whole before it has gone through that whole permitting process. At this point, staff recommends not passing a resolution of support in favor of either project, but the council can choose to go on the record for or against the project by adopting the resolution that is attached. The resolution as drafted has the word of support in there for each of the project. If council wishes to go on the record in opposition or neutrality, that would need to be changed as well. If they wanted to pull one of the projects out and support one but not the other, they could do that as well.
Okay, discussion amongst council.
I just want to make a comment as a former member of Planning and Zoning that I do feel that it is very important that council allow planning and zoning to do what planning and zoning does, and that is meet with these people, whoever, when I say these people, I mean any people looking for special use permits, evaluate the projects, and then make decisions or just recommendations to council based on what they find versus without influence from council.
I'm going to second that. This seems a little out of order in this. I don't believe that the people looking for the tax credits are at fault. I think this could be a state issue, almost putting cart before horse. That said, I would caution us from influencing planning and zoning, especially when it comes to a specific use permit.
I feel like we've already heard, we've already talked about, and I think staff went cautious in their writing of this, and I think we should pass a resolution in direct opposition of it.
Just to be clear, Austin, and maybe this will provide a little bit of context, does the state law contemplate planning and zoning be involved at this stage of the process?
No, they don't contemplate any city planning or zoning issues at this point in the process. They're simply looking whether or not the city would support or not support the project in their community via the tax breaks. The concern that we have as staff is that if the council says, yes, we support this, and then before it goes through the whole planning and zoning process, that could be an issue. If this was a use by right, that'd be a different topic for the conversation, but because it requires a specific use permit, that's where the concern comes in from a staff level.
If to piggyback on Councilman Singleton's issue, if I was to do that, I'd like to verify a couple more facts with Chief Bitts, but I wanted to give others the opportunity to comment on this if they wanted to.
If you've got questions, now would be a good time to ask them.
Yeah. So in February of 2022, and I think in January, Planning and Zoning visited, and I think they voted against a specific use permit and sent that recommendation to council. And we followed up in the February meeting. And I think as part of the minutes, Chief, you had said that there were 13 emergency calls per month on average at the manor. Is that roughly the same today, or has that changed at all, or can you?
Yeah, it's roughly the same. We made 129 calls last year. to the manor, all EMS.
And that is an apartment complex, not assisted living or, urgent memory care. It's apartment complex for 55 plus. Is that
55
right?
or older, and yes, and that the manor is actually has tax credits as well associated with it, so it'd be a very similar setup.
And Chief, further, you did some research. They had talked about other properties, and you've done some research that indicates this is not a unique situation that we have. Other EMS, it says in here, we've reached out to other EMS departments that serve those facilities, and they have seen similar calls to facilities that experience as with our existing senior living. That's correct.
Specifically, we did get some emails back from a couple of agencies, one in Fort Bend, Deer Park. Deer Park had similar numbers, 2023, 141 calls, 2022, 169 calls, 2021, 209 calls. Those are just the EMS side.
And then I also recall, James, you did a little research, because we talked about it and tabled at the next meeting, of how many facilities were within 5 miles of here, to see, just for the citizens, is this something that we do need to provide our aging population? And I can't recall the number off the top of my head. I don't have the minutes open, but it was significant. So in our opinion, if I can recall correctly, it wasn't an area of need for this area.
And can I ask either one of the chiefs over here? EMS calls, they are separate from police calls. Is that separated out? Can I get a clear explanation of that? Do you mind?
Yeah, EMS calls are independent unless it's related to a police incident.
Yeah, in January, it's in the city manager's report. In January, there were 120 EMS calls. 62 of them did not involve a vehicle. If I'm reading that report right, it looked like. So roughly 13, if you take that 13 number, 10 to 13 out of 62, that's 1 out of 6, as few as 1 out, or as many as 1 out of 4 calls are going to that place.
I appreciate your sentiment about P&Z. Because of the specific use and because it came rejected from them in a very, very similar, I stand again. We should pass this in opposition.
Can I ask a question for our legal staff here? Is this something that is it recommended that we comment on? Is it better that we don't comment on, or does it make a difference?
So just really from the notification you guys got as a city, it's just asking you to either say no objection or support it. So you can just let this item go without a motion. I'm not even sure we could submit it if we wanted to decline it. So it's specifically asking just for clearly state support or no objection. So,
thank you.
Personally, my issue is that first of all, this is not even yet asking us for a special use permit. This is only asking us to whether or not we would support a tax incentive for the creation of this facility. They're asking for a tax incentive for us to bring in a facility that would, based on all of the data that we have before us, place a significant burden on our EMS personnel that are funded predominantly by the rest of us. I don't know how in the world I could, in good faith, support a resolution that would call for that from the state. That being said, I recognize that while there is not a statutory basis for a resolution not supporting it, I do think that in the event that there are members of, let's just say, the House or the Senate that may be looking at this, such resolutions might play a role in how they look at any political questions about how this is dealt with. So I think that at least I personally feel strongly enough about it, and I think that most of our citizens would feel strongly enough about it, that I think we should, out of precaution, pass the resolution as a resolution opposing the application for the tax credit because of its implications for our city in terms of safety.
And I just want to make another point that we were looking at staff in the fire department via grants, and we could really back ourselves into a corner, not only not being like if we didn't get the grants, but being so short-staffed that it could really impact a lot. Just another comment.
I move to approve Resolution 2024-13, striking supports and replacing with oppose.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All of those in favor? All of those against? Any abstentions? The resolution as modified passes unanimously. That brings us to mayor and council comments. I'm going to start on this end with Mayor Pro Tem Mitchum.
Well, I did want to say the pictures in the packet were adorable, and I wish you guys the best. I also wanted to say congrats to Chief Kill. How was your first meeting? It's good?
It was good.
Solid. I'm ready for this cold weather to be done.
I'll just mention, and I think it's still open, Robert, the contest for naming the cafe that will be in the new golf course clubhouse. So if you're interested in naming rights, participate in the contest.
Wanted to welcome Chief Keel and thank all the citizens who made comments tonight.
Congrats, Chief Keel. Looking forward to the golf course opening soon. And
I just want to say congrats because everybody else has said it. No, I'm just kidding. I really do mean it. I'm very happy you're here, and congratulations. That's it.
Well, I'll take a slightly different tact by saying I want to thank former Chief Riggs for his service to our city. He made a huge impact on our police department during his time here. The culture of that department, from what I've seen, has flourished. And I, because of that, as I mentioned during Chief Keel's badge pinning ceremony, I was confident that the best candidate for the job was going to be somebody that was already in that department. And so when Chief Keel was named as the successor to Chief Riggs, I was very pleased because I knew that would continue to carry forward all of the great work that had been achieved there. So congratulations, Chief Keel. I think it's clear to you probably that you have the support of this entire council and this community for you and all of the officers in our department. And we look forward to y'all keep making some of those amazing busts that y'all have been making. If y'all haven't checked social media, the drug bust that they made, that was getting that stuff off our streets was phenomenal.
They're on one right now.
Oh, they got another one?
Thank you. They're on one right now. So they're in the middle of a critical incident pursuit, I think. So,
man, just keep yanking those guys off the street. That's phenomenal. All right, man. Keep doing that, man. Keep doing that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and we've got an executive session, so I'm going to go ahead and move to that. City Council is now going to retire to a closed session at 8:19 p.m. pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations, Section 551.072, deliberations about real property, and Section 551.071, consultations with attorney, in consultation with the following items. Pursuant to the Texas Open Meeting Act, Section 551.087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations, Section 551.072, deliberations about real property, and Section 551.071, consultations with attorney, a closed meeting to deliberate information from a business prospect that the city seeks to locate in Jersey Village, TERS number 2, and economic development negotiations, including including the possible purchase, exchange, or value of real property related thereto. Pursuant to the Texas Open Meeting Act, Section 551.072, deliberations about real property, and Section 551.071, consultations with attorney, a closed meeting to deliberate the potential and possible purchase, exchange, sale, or value of real property located within TERS 3. We will return to open session and continue with the remainder of tonight's agenda after the closed session deliberations are concluded. Okay, the closed session was adjourned at 8:30 p.m. and no official action or vote was conducted during the closed session. There is an item on the agenda under L1, discuss and take appropriate action on items discussed in the executive session regarding information from a business prospect the city seeks to locate in Jersey Village Territory Number 2 and economic development negotiations, including the possible purchase, exchange, or value of real property related thereto. My understanding is there is no action to be taken, so we're going to move on. And so unless any council member has any objection to that, we are going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting then. Meeting adjourned.